Welcome to another YouTube video. Today's video is about how I went from running 5 miles to 100 miles in under 2 years. Early this year in September, I ran the Snowdon 100 mile race. It is a mountain race with around 7,000 meters of elevation. It took me 39 hours and it was one of the toughest things I've ever done, but it was amazing to have achieved it. I'm going to run through the process that I used to get there, the different races that I did prior to the 100 mile race, some of the training that I did from both an endurance perspective and from a strength perspective. And I'm going to give you a bit of a blueprint so that if you are interested in running a long ultra like that, then you have something to work with. So it was about 2 years ago. The furthest that I'd run was around 10K. So this shows you the amount that you can build up your running mileage within a relatively short time period. I was in Bali and I remember doing a 10K per week on the beach. Was super happy with this. And it's all relative, like 10K at the time for me was a long distance. Now having done long ultras, 10K is a lot easier. I decided that I wanted to take the running a bit more seriously. I started hybrid training where I was doing strength and endurance concurrently. I started building my running mileage up. I was doing 11Ks, 12Ks, 13Ks. And then I started doing half marathons. And what I realized was with this endurance stuff, you can basically just keep building it up. It is pretty much limitless with what you can do with it. And I love that about it. And I was really keen to run some longer distances. So I booked my first ultra. It was the Ring of Fire Firelighter Ultra. And I actually did this last year. That was my first ultra marathon. I wanted to do a race with some elevation in because at the back of my head, I always wanted to do a long ultra in the mountains. That was a bit of a dream of mine. I really wanted to do that. I love the mountains and I wanted to do an ultra in that environment. So I picked an ultra that was going to give me some experience for that. The Ring of Fire Firelighter Ultra had some elevation in it. It had some rocky terrain. So it was a good first step to get me to the point of doing one of these longer mountain ultras. So I did the race. I ended up coming, I think it was 13th out of about 75 runners. So I did pretty well, kept up a decent pace throughout the run. I absolutely loved it as well. It was a great event. If you're thinking about doing your first ultra marathon, it's a really good event. Beautiful scenery, really friendly people out on the course. Everybody helps each other out. That's one of the great things about ultra running. The community is amazing. So after my first ultra, I decided that I was going to take on something longer. I caught the ultra bug. I wanted to see what I was capable of. And later that year in December, I started thinking about doing some longer races. And then in January, I booked my first 100 mile ultra, the GB Ultra's Snowdon 100 mile ultra. And I needed to come up with a strategy to get there. So the strategy was I was going to do a 50 mile race in June, which was going to prepare me for the 100 mile race in September. So at the start of that year, I was actually doing a powerlifting focus phase. I was maxing out my strength numbers in May. I got a 200 kilo squat, a 240 deadlift, and a 150 kilo pause bench. And then I only had 6 weeks to prepare for the 50 miler. I was keeping in some running at the time, and I'm following a hybrid training approach where at different points in the year I max out strength or I max out endurance, but I've always got a good baseline in both strength and endurance. That is one of the benefits of the hybrid approach, is that if you decide to change the focus, you're never too far away from achieving pretty much any physical feat. So 6 weeks after maxing out my powerlifting numbers, I booked in the 50 mile ultra to prepare me for the 100 mile ultra. And the reason why I picked this particular ultra was because it was similar to the 100 mile ultra, but just scaled back. It was a shorter ultra, but similar kind of elevation, similar terrain, similar environment. So it was really good preparation. So in the lead up to that, I was doing more hill work, more mountain work, incline walking, getting used to walking up hills basically. There was a crazy amount of hills in the Ultra Wales and the Snowdon 100 mile race. So I was getting out to Snowdonia, getting out to the Peak District, getting out to the Lake District, and getting out to some beautiful places, some amazing mountainous trail runs. And the 50 mile race came and I got through it. I got through the race in about, I think it was about 15 hours. I can't remember 100%, but it was about 15 hours off the top of my head. By the end of the race, I felt like I had a little bit more in the tank. Don't get me wrong, it was still a hard race. It was a real challenge. The furthest that I'd done before that was 57K. So it was 85K, way more elevation than the last race. But I felt like I had a little bit in the tank for the 100-mile race that was coming up. So that was a positive. But what the 50-mile race did is it highlighted some weaknesses. In terms of race strategy, I was going a little bit too fast up the hills, and I was picking up a little bit too much fatigue. So I realized that, and I decided to pull back the intensity of the inclines. And then I also picked up a bit of an injury on that race, which was a little bit stressful at the time because I thought it might put me out of the 100-mile race. But with injuries, what they'll often show you, unless you're unlucky and you fall over or something, but if it's like a repetitive strain injury or something that kind of gradually builds up on you, often what an injury will show you is a weak part of your body. So for me, I had weak glutes. Because I had weak glutes, my knee was struggling to stabilize because the glutes help stabilize the knee. So my knee was rubbing against my IT band and that was causing pain. So after the 50-mile race, went back to the drawing board. I needed to bring my mileage down to allow my IT band to recover. And I also needed to work on strengthening up my glutes so that I could handle the demands of a longer race. So over the next 3 months, there was 3 months between Ultra Wales and Snowdon 100. Over those 3 months, there was a lot of leg strengthening exercises, glute strengthening exercises, lower body resilience building exercises. So the stronger and more resilient your lower body is, the longer you're going to be able to run. If your lower body is weak, you've got imbalances, you're going to pick up niggles, potentially pick up injuries, and your body is going to be less equipped to handle the demands of long ultras. So I was doing stuff like Bosu ball balance, passing a kettlebell around my body while balancing on a Bosu ball, which is great for stability, building up some knee stability, core stability. I was doing calf jumps to build up ankle strength, Achilles strength, foot strength. I was doing banded crab walks to build up more stability in my knee, to build up glute strength. I was doing Romanian deadlifts, lunging. Lunging is super important when you're doing ultras, particularly stuff like mountain ultras. I was also doing bike work alongside my running. My running only came up to, during the 50-mile and 100-mile prep, only came up to about 60K as the max running mileage. So this is really, really low for a 100-mile race. So I was starting that race very much on the back foot. However, what I lacked in running mileage, I replaced with building up extra leg strength, and also I was doing extra bike work to help keep up my aerobic base to get lots of that zone 2 work in, which is your endurance engine. So whilst my running mileage was very low, I was doing as much as I possibly could outside of that to equip myself for that race. So the race was in September. That night before the race, I had literally zero sleep. All I could think about was my race strategy, what food I was going to bring, where I was going to beat my support crew, and just generally thinking about the race. I was a bit nervous, I'm not going to lie. The furthest that I'd run before that was 50 miles. So it got to 4 a.m. and I was just twiddling my thumbs thinking, Jesus Christ, I need to be up soon. And yeah, that was it. I went out and did the race. It was one of the toughest things that I have ever done, without a doubt. There was lots of mountains in there. The weather conditions were not good. There was rain, wind. We got turned down towards the top of Snowdon because the weather was too bad. Absolutely pelted it down during the night, which when you're struggling with sleep deprivation, your legs are sore, you're getting cold. You know, it's not what you want. And then the following day, the weather was also terrible. I got joined by one of my very good friends, Josh, who said that he saw me and my face was pretty much blue and I was shivering. He said that he was a bit concerned about me, so he was helping me keep up the pace to keep me warm. It was great to have Josh. He actually ran a marathon. That was his first trail marathon, and he helped support me towards the end of that run. And it was useful having him as well because sleep deprivation, I was seeing random stuff. I was seeing wizards in trees. I was seeing elves, random stuff, but I was good enough to finish the race. So finished the race. It was an amazing feeling, crossing the finish line. I can't say that there was much celebration. I just fell asleep when I got home. I went to eat pasta with my family and just fell asleep at the table. No celebrations. I was absolutely knackered. But it took me about 3 weeks to fully recover from that race. 3 or 4 weeks. I felt quite fatigued after the race. But when that fatigue started to go, it started to sink in, and I'd achieved a massive goal of mine. And I was very, very happy. So that was the process of going from 5 miles, 10K, right the way up to 100 miles. If you build things up gradually, I wouldn't recommend building your running mileage up more than 10% per week. If you're doing strengthening exercises to strengthen up weak points of your body and to make sure that you don't have imbalances. If you are doing race-specific training, so the ultra that you're going to be doing, i.e. if you're doing a mountain ultra, doing hill work, doing incline work, strengthening up your legs to make sure they're resilient. If you do all these things, you structure this in the right way, you can cover very, very long distances. And it's a hugely rewarding thing to do. I see these long distances as my Misogi challenge. So what the Misogi challenge is once a year doing something that is well outside of your comfort zone and that is almost out of reach. So for me, when I first got into ultra running, that was the 57K. Then it was the 50 miler, 100 miler. And each time you do these long ultras, you grow into it and you learn a lot about your body, you learn a lot about your mind, and you grow through the process. And that's one thing that I absolutely love about ultras is it's not just about the physical development, but it's also about the mental development and realizing what you are capable of. If you are interested in running an ultra yourself, maybe it's your first ultra or taking on a longer ultra to anything you've done before, if you click the link below, there is a coaching application form. And if you fill that out, you can book in a call with me and I would be more than happy to chat through your project, discuss how we would go about getting you running your ultra and getting a plan of action together to get you there. So if you're interested in doing an ultra, click the link below, fill out the application form, and I'd be more than happy to chat with you. Hopefully that has motivated you to either take on your first ultra or to take on a longer ultra. And hopefully that's also showed you that it is doable. It is possible when you take the right approach, and it might not be as out of reach as you initially thought. But thank you for tuning in to this YouTube video. Hopefully I'll see you again on the next one.